Hey, it's Lacey Broussard, and this is the Multi-Orgasmic Mama podcast. From sex and motherhood, birth and relationships, communication and intimacy building, and Taoism and Tantra, we explore topics such as self-care, self-pleasure, body image, jade eggs, the feminine cycles, creativity in business, and modern spirituality. The Multi-Orgasmic Mama is a place to come for true stories and transformational advice on how to be a mama and a multi-orgasmic woman too. Welcome, everyone, to the Multi-Orgasmic Mama podcast. Today, I have on a special guest, Meliea Black. She's a doula and a birth professional. And we're going to be talking today about how having a great sexuality actually gives you more energy for mothering. So that's quite a taboo for most of you, I know, but it's a message that I really want to get out there. So, Meliea, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I feel like I help in birth, not just as a doula in literal birth situations, but also as a coach, a life coach. I help women birth ideas. I help women birth their best selves. So I feel like the birth professional role was just the beginning for me. It opened up this whole world of realizing that life really parallels birth. And so I feel like once women have had their babies, I'm still helping them birth things all the time, walking them through how to transition into mothering and what does your best self look like when you're a mother and all of those things. So I feel like I have a really amazing job. For
Yeah,
sure.
sounds like it. Perpetual birth. I love that. Once the baby.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as a doula and a midwife, what have you noticed about women's sexuality and relationships after having babies?
Well, I feel like a lot of women really struggle to embrace the paradox that I can be a good, loving, nurturing mother and also be a robust sexual being. I feel like our society and our upbringing as women has taught us that sexuality and the good mom cannot coexist, that you're either promiscuous and sexual, or you're a mom. And we've really lost the idea that we are women who are sexual beings and can be nurturing moms at the same time, and that those two things can and should coexist.
Yeah, definitely. I've totally noticed that as well, which is really the whole reason that I started this podcast, was to kind of break the taboos about how we kind of feel like we have to give up our sexuality when we become mothers, because somehow it's not acceptable to be a sexually vibrant woman and a mom too. So in my experience, it's been that I can have both, and I strive so hard to make that known to other women too. So I'm curious, in your role as a doula and birth professional, you see a lot of women postpartum, and I'm sure you know and have a lot of friends that you talk to. And what is their number one concerns about sexuality and motherhood that you hear about?
For a lot of women, it's just the loss of the drive. Um, so part of it is just the physiologic aspects of postpartum, the sleep deprivation. If you're nursing, you don't really feel like your body is your own. And if there are other children, just the fatigue and the demand, on the physical demands on your body every day just don't leave a lot of time to self-nurture and feel like anything more than mom mode. So that's a big challenge. But I also think that um, motherhood brings into different dynamics into our relationship, and we really have to be intentional about carving out that space for our partner and our sexual relationship. And I think women are just really struggling to figure out what that looks like. You know, it's hard. A mom who's sleeping 2 hours a night or 4 hours a night, nursing 3 times during that time frame, and then a toddler comes and crawls in bed at 7 a.m., really finds it hard to wrap her head around where in the world in there am I going to embrace that part of myself, or even do I even recognize that part of myself anymore? What does that part of myself look like now? When my breasts are leaking and I may or may not have showered today. So I think we have to really help women let go of a lot of ideals and perfectionism around that that dynamic, and embrace what's there. That might mean a quickie in the shower so that you get your shower and your sex at the same time. We have to get creative and sort of release some old ideas about what it has to look like.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think that a lot of women get in their head that to have a healthy sexuality with kids and with toddlers means that you have to be having sex all the time. And in my experience, that's not necessarily true. It's not so much the quantity of sex you're having, it's the quality of it that really makes a difference. So, like, are you actually connecting? Are you intimately connecting? Because more than anything that I hear from new moms is that they feel a lack of connection to their partner. And that doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, come in the form of having sex, although it can, but that there are so many other things that we can do to really to feel more of that connection. And one of the things that I always teach is my fears, desires, and loves practice. Look, if you just don't want to have sex, then but you want to connect and feel that intimate connection and be seen and to be heard, then that's just one of my go-to practices to get that without having to be physically touched. So, Meliea, I'm also curious about the role of birth trauma and women that have issues, retaining their sex life after birth. Have you seen a big correlation with that, or is that something that you help women with?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of that, and it's really unfortunate. And, it's part of why I do what I do, not just, because I love birth and all the things birth, but because I really would like to see the climate change, especially here in the United States, around women, their autonomy, and their desires around birth not being prioritized by care providers. And so what I see a lot of the time, in fact, a lot of times when people come to hire me um, to be at their birth, it's because they've had an experience where they did not feel seen, heard, respected, um, in various ways. And yes, for a lot of those women, that meant um, the way that they birthed was actually felt violating to their body. And that's a very conflicting feeling for a lot of women, because they feel like they should be happy they have their baby, but at the same time, they can't negotiate what has happened in their body. And a lot of them feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. I should have said something. I could have said something. I should have spoken up. or they feel a lot of anger that they feel like they were bullied, or they feel like they were pressured into something that, if they hadn't been having, hard contractions every 2 minutes, they would never have said yes to. And in that dynamic too, some of them do blame their partner for not realizing what was happening and stepping in. So there's a lot of dynamics there. There's physical dynamic of, I feel like my body didn't work the way I thought it would, and actually feels a little traumatized by this experience, and that feeling that their partner may or may not have contributed in that moment to that dynamic. So it can get really, it can get really complex. And of course, for some of those issues, I refer people out to a more professional line of help. But a lot of it is just communication, and really being women just need to be heard and seen and validated in those experiences so that they can find healing again. And that's what I try to help them do.
Yeah, definitely. When I first heard that 1 in 3 women consider their birth traumatic, that
Mm-hmm.
statistic, like, it totally scared me, because the fact that we don't have any idea, like, no one talks about it. And, you know, in my curiosity of, what's going on with women, like, totally losing their desire for sex after birth, I started to wonder, is there a link between birth trauma and a woman's lack of desire? And I really do feel like there is. Like, so many women just aren't interested, and as a matter of nature and breastfeeding, like, that's totally understandable. But what I find is that even after the breastfeeding's ended, the kids sleeping through the night, that the sex drive and the wanting to reconnect in that way, just, it's not coming back. And I really think that it's related to either some sort of past sexual trauma or birth trauma that no one is talking about. And there's so few professionals out there who are actually dealing with this, because the main message that we're getting is, well, you should just be thankful that your baby's okay and alive. And, screw you and your birth trauma. Nobody cares. You have a healthy, happy baby. And that's so damaging to a woman's psyche. It makes her feel like, well, I guess I didn't matter. I guess what I say and how I feel doesn't matter. And there's nothing as hurtful as feeling that way. So yeah, I definitely see this huge link too, with women just losing interest and it being related to something like that, or past sexual trauma. So I'm wondering, in what ways are you currently helping mamas get back in touch with their sexuality and their bodies?
Yeah, well, here in the Bible Belt, um, for us and for me, it's been just starting the conversations. That's been a huge a step forward, because no one was having these conversations, and women were suffering silently, wondering if they were just weird, or am I the only one who feels this way, and is it normal to feel this way, and all of those things. So just starting the conversations and having the conversations has been a big step forward. And other women like me being willing to be very bold and talk about, much in the same way that you do, just to be able to be vocal and be open about sexual health, about pleasure, about all of these things that have generally been taboo, as far as casual conversation goes. Um, and just to be a role model and show that I'm not scared of having these conversations. I don't, I have a sex positive home. We talk about these things in our family. Um, these conversations are just part of our life, and appropriately so. And my 27-year-old daughter would tell you, well, she compares me to the mom figure on Meet the Fockers. Um, the
Yes, exactly.
She's like, my mom is going to ask you about your orgasm if you tell her about your cramps. Or so, and that's funny and all, but I love that. I love that people know that I'm a safe place to have these conversations and that I'm not afraid to have them, because I really feel like that's the first step, is just being willing to talk and being willing to be open about this part of our lives that's so vital and so important, for sure. And so that's my current focus, is just awareness and having the conversations. But definitely moving forward into the education aspects of it too. As the we have to move a little slow with these things here in the South. We have to take things in baby steps, or else we'll get burned at the stake. So we have to kind of tread gently. But I'm so excited to see what's happening here. Just at my yoga class Sunday night, I teach a yoga class where we very much get back in touch with our sensual and sexual selves, with the music and the movement. And I had somebody come up to me after class and just say, I'm just so grateful for this village of women where I can talk about this part of myself unashamedly, and I can be authentic. And authenticity is freedom. So I feel like we just have to keep talking. And so that's what I'm just going to do, is keep talking, about it, and letting women know it's important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so many women crave to be able to authentically express themselves sexually. In an age of pornography, and it's just everywhere, and it's so easily accessible, I think it really dampens women to feel like they can authentically express themselves sexually and it be received. I think there's so much fear around that. And also around the shame,
Mhm.
like the shame of even talking about it. I love that, you meet women with just an open and loving arms, and just having discussions about it, just letting them know, hey, it's safe to talk to me about this. Like, just having the safety to talk about it is so, so valuable. Like, if you don't have a group of girlfriends or mentors that you can talk about your sexual self with, I mean, it's literally the force inside of you and in each of us that perpetuates the human species. And it's the thing that we most shame and make, give a bad rep to. Like, it's just, it's awful that this is where we've come with our sexuality, because it's just been so repressed and so feared and so shamed that women feel like they can't even talk about it in a safe manner. So I love that people can come to you and that they feel trusting of you and safe with you to do that. And then, yeah, I'm really curious more about your yoga classes you have. What do you do in these classes?
Well, it was inspired by a class that I actually took a few years back when I was had just entered my 40s and was feeling, I wasn't even sure what I was feeling. I just had lost touch with who I was, and I went to this class, and we were, rolling our hips and twerking and integrating that into our yoga moves. And it set something free inside of me, and so I adopted that style into my yoga class. So we play very sexy music. Everybody knows that, when you come to my class, the music is very rated R. And that is our safe space where we can just express, and we move our bodies in ways that as moms we don't get to move, real often. And it's a freedom that uh, has helped so many women get back in touch with that part of themselves. And women tell me all the time, like, my partner loves this class, like, because when I come home, they feel free, and
Yeah.
and it's just been really, really great.
What do you
Um,
call this type of yoga that you're teaching?
so I call the class Zen Booty because it's a
Oh,
combination of, we do a lot of meditation and deep spiritual work in the class, but then that booty work is part of the
well,
spiritual work, and so I integrate those together.
oh,
Um,
love it.
People don't generally associate twerking with a spiritual practice, but in my class, it is.
Oh, I totally do. Oh, yes, I totally do. I love it.
I know you probably do too.
Yes, I know not
Yeah,
everyone,
we know. We
but
found the secret.
yeah, yeah, and like I practice a lot of Eastern philosophy, and I'm a tantrika, and I adhere to a lot of the Taoist philosophy as well. That your energy systems, the whole energy system, and the tantric and Taoist philosophy is all based on your root chakra, which is your sexual center. So in a woman, it's her cervix. So you don't have the energy for other things in your life, like all of the higher things, the self-expression, the ability to really excel in your career or to become spiritually enlightened, unless you've got the sexual energy piece down. Like, that's your life force. That's the energy that you use to transform into all of these other energies that we need for life. So to me, it's the most important piece, because
Absolutely.
uh, if you don't if you're not okay with your sexual energy and your sexuality, it's a base, what do you call it? It's like a base level existence of, I'm not okay with my own body. Like, if you're not okay with your sexuality, how could you be okay with all of you? How could you be okay with living in this body that's obviously a sexual creature, and call yourself spiritually enlightened or whatever? Like, you can't, because
Mhm.
you've got to become okay with that piece first. So I think that that's a really important thing to point out, is that unless you're okay and accepting and loving of your own sexuality and sexual energy, it's really hard to present yourself as someone who feels worthy to be in the world, to take up space in the world, to be empowered in the world, because there's always something in the back of your mind saying it's not okay to express myself sexually, or like, I can't be that way, or I'm too much, or all of those things. So I see a lot of that going on with women, is that we try and spiritually bypass the sexual piece because we think we can, and that we can be empowered without being okay with our own sexuality. And I'm here to call BS on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So I love that you're doing Zen Booty Yoga. I think that's amazing. You need to like trademark that, and people need to know how to do it. That would be
In my spare time. Yes.
yeah. Like, what is that, right? So, what changes have you noticed in the women that are going to your yoga classes? And you also have like a box subscription thing too, right?
I do. Each of these things have sort of built on the other. So when we started the class, and women did start becoming more aware, there was this desire to grow and to, okay, now who is this self, and how do I, really start bringing her out more? Oh, wow, this is the real me. Like, how do I get to know this person? And so, what I find, and most of the women who come to my class are moms of at least one, if not multiple children. A lot of them still small, and reading a book is nearly impossible for them. having as soon as they sit down to read a book, they fall asleep. Listening, to long, classes and workshops and things like that, are getting to them. And even as a coach, finding an hour of quiet time to get on the phone with me just was not practical for them. And so I just, tried to figure out how can I, get this, nurturing, to help these women nurture this part of themselves in a way that's practical for them. And a subscription box ended up being the solution to that,
Wow.
because it comes to their home in their mailbox. So it's not something you have to log into. It's not something you have to go to. It comes to you. It's really hard not to open our mail as long as it's not a bill or junk. We want what's in there. And so it's appealing. And inside the box are intentions and life work that is in small, digestible pieces. So, we move through 3 intentions each month, and all of those are designed to pull out our real self. But it's not overwhelming, and it's not, it's not an overload of information. It's just simple tools and simple things that women can do to help nurture this part of themselves and feel more free to be their authentic self, including that authentic sexual being that they are. So it's been a really, and we've created this little village online, all of us together working toward the same goals. And every month we kick off on the full moon. And that's been really significant to have a ritual in that really kicks things off. And we've all started syncing our cycles up. And it's just become this really neat sisterhood in there. And we're really having a great time with it, but we're also really transforming in there, and that's been amazing.
That's so cool. So is that just for local women, or is it for women all around the world?
It's for women all around the United States. I'm not currently shipping outside of the United States yet, but that'll probably be on the horizon. But my vision was, for women to connect their energy with each other. That I know it can be hard, especially with moms who have little children, to face connect with other women. And so this is me meeting the current age where it is, the technological age, and saying, okay, if we can't get together on the regular face to face, then what can we do to energetically connect? And so when we all meet under that full moon each month with our box, with our ritual, I feel like we're all meeting under the same moon, doing the same ritual. So we do have this energetic connection that sort of reaches across the miles. And so every month we seem to get a new state. So that's exciting. My vision of all these energetic frequencies shooting across the states is becoming a reality. And that's really, really thrilling.
Beautiful. Wow. So do y'all meet virtually?
Yeah, I usually go live in the group once a week, and then we just share our experiences. We talk through the work together there, and it's been a really neat place to bond, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole idea of cyclical living is something that I'm teaching and practicing myself. And it's definitely been like a one-on-one of, this is how the body was made to be. It was made, the female body, and how it was made to be in a cycle, just like the moon. And the more that I practice it, the more that I realize how important those new moon intentions are and how potent and powerful they are. Because I will, some months, to be honest, I will literally forget about what my intention was, but I will go back on the full moon and look at the new moon intention that I made 2 weeks earlier. And I'm like, oh, wow, I actually did make a lot of progress with that intention. And I didn't even like think about it for 2 weeks.
Right.
So it is a super powerful practice, and it's one that I think gives you more energy because you start to learn how to become okay with giving yourself a break and to give yourself rest and learn how to take care of yourself in a way that's really nourishing for yourself. So I think that it's amazing that you're doing these box subscriptions and sync with a moon cycle and like, bringing all of that into it as well. That's super important for women to really learn how to get in tune with their cyclical nature, because it does give you more energy for a really awesome sex life too. So that's what my next question is for you is, most mamas complain about not having energy or time. And like we were talking earlier, like it's totally understandable in the beginning and when you're breastfeeding to just not have the energy for it. It's like first 6 weeks, yeah, totally get it. But do you agree that having a healthy relationship and sex life actually does give you more energy for mothering after that initial time?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that happens to us after we have a baby or babies is we sort of feel like sometimes we lose ourselves. We become, caught up in our duties as a mom. And so one of the ways we can reconnect to that beautiful, vital, robust part of ourselves is to connect back to that sexual um, energy that that at one point in our life was extremely prominent for most of us, and to reconnect back to that and find that beautiful balance between the nurturing part of us that's a mother, and that does have to somewhat sacrifice ourselves a little bit sometimes um, to give our children what they need, but then to also turn around and give back to ourselves, and to make sure that we keep acknowledging and seeking that part of ourself is extremely important. And when we do that, then I believe that we do more energy, more stamina, definitely emotionally. The women that I know that have a good sex life, even when their children are young, they're the people you want to be around because they are always, they are, they are feeling it and it shows. And so I believe that's there for all of us. But
Yeah.
it is kind of like going to the gym, like you just got to pack the bag and get there. But once you get there, you're like, man, I'm so glad I came, and so sometimes it's just, you got to just sort of cross that threshold uh, know that it's good for you and it is for you. Again, coming back to that, you know, yeah, I still will hear that dynamic sometimes of, in that postpartum, well, my partner wants to know if it's okay for us to have sex, and, just reminding women like, this is for you too. This is, that pleasure is for you. It's not just the partner waiting in the wings, for the flag to be waved that all is okay, and just trying to help them foster that energy again, for sure.
Yeah. I love what you said about likening your sexuality to going to the gym, because it's so true. Like, I think there's a prevalent belief that if two people experience a bump in the road and their sexual connection, then that means something about their relationship, or that they're just not meant to be together or something. Like, would you say that just because you get unhealthy that you're just meant to be unhealthy? Like, no, you would just go to the gym or eat better.
Right.
So
Right.
the same thing. It's like, it just because you have a bump in the road with your connection doesn't mean that you're not meant for each other. Like, people just assume that, like, if we're not being compatible in the last few months, that, well, I guess this just means our relationship needs to end. That is absolutely not the case. If you haven't tried anything, like,
Mm-hmm.
try to do things. There's all sorts of intimacy building practices out there. There's all sorts of communication building techniques that you can use to, see what works. And, therapists, coaches, life coaches like Meliea, sex, love, relationship coaches like me, like, we're out there with tons of tools and techniques. It's just a matter of, are you willing to work on it? Are you willing to go to the gym? So just wanted to point that out. That I think that's really important, that people see that just because you might experience that bump in the road, it's not like, oh no, I guess we're just not meant to be together, or it's not going to work out. Like,
Right.
let's go get what you need, and that's okay.
Yeah. You just make, just like you do with your eating or your self-care or whatever, you just make a shift and you start taking steps toward the goal you want. And so the hardest part a lot of times is just the shift, is moving towards something different. And then once you do that, it gets easier. And then when you're on the other side of it, you're always like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally. So what would you say to a mama who says that she has no energy for sex?
I would say first, rekindle your self-love. Um, get back in touch with that part of yourself. It's interesting. This month, our box theme was passion, and I I threw a little bit of a extra ritual in the box this month for the women, and it's been very powerful. But it's just a simple ritual of anointing our belly, our lower belly, with oil, and just doing some light massage in a quiet place. And just that small act of self-love. And of course, I gave them some affirmations and all to say while they were doing that. And just that small act of self-love will rekindle a connection with our body, and a connection with the power source of our body, our pelvis, our womb, um, and can bring some of those feelings back. So sometimes it's just as simple as, giving yourself that hot bath and quiet, candlelit bathroom, or going and getting that massage, or whatever it is for each unique woman to feel like she is nurturing and loving herself. I think it starts there. We really find it hard to share with another person if we're not really feeling worthy of love ourselves. So coming back to that self-love, I find, can rekindle those flames pretty quickly. If it's a consistent practice. So that would be my advice: is return to self-love, rekindle that connection with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I love that so much. So, so true. So if a woman listening in today is like, I just don't feel any passion in my relationship and my sex life seems just dead, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd have to share with them about that?
Yeah, again, just, reconnect to your power as a woman. I would say, you know, find the sexiest music you know of, and for everybody that'll be something different, and get in your bedroom, close the door, and dance like nobody is watching. and like you're trying to, like you're trying to lure yourself, just move your hips and reconnect to the sensual part of you. Move your hips, spiral your body, uh, and open up those channels again. It's kind of, like, um, being built in a stream. Sometimes you have to loosen all that up and let it go and let it be washed downstream. And I think for me, that's the easiest way to do that, is to move my body, explore rituals that will connect me back to myself, and open myself up to my passion increasing again, and understanding, how that's going to invigorate me, and looking forward to that, and going ahead and letting my emotions get excited and match the end goal, has been really effective for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And if you had one piece of advice or one tip about being a multi orgasmic mama, what would it be?
Oh, only one. Again, I'm going to come back to that, like, you know, um, that self-love. Just, connect to yourself and love who you are, and embrace that sexual part of you that is unique, like all of your other qualities, and nurture it and feed it, for sure.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much, Meliea, for your time and for being a guest here today. Really appreciate all your beautiful words of wisdom and advice. And I'm sure everyone else is super appreciative of you too for doing your box subscription. Sounds amazing. And seriously, like, I want to go to your yoga class one day. I'm going to fly to just so I can yoga class.
I would love that. I would love that. Well, thank you so much for having me and for having these conversations and the work that you're doing too. If all of us just keep bringing this message to the forefront, I believe we're on the verge of a revolution. I sort of feel it stirring in the cosmos. So I think it's happening, and it's exciting to be part of it. So I love connecting with all the other professionals and all doing this amazing work.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks.